Wayne Allen Sally at 10:53 p.m. on Sunday, the 3rd of June, 2012. Last night, I had read a passage from 102 Minutes, the untold story of the fight to survive inside the Twin Towers by Jim Dwyer and Kevin Flynn. And I went to the gym today, and on my way to the swimming area, this was playing. They don't play a lot of that, heavy type music, not in the weekends because there ain't that many people there. Aren't any people there. And it was very calm. And I just thought it was funny because, sad funny. The section of the book I read was about a woman who had gotten a call from her husband, but he never spoke with her. She just heard ambient noise. The people in the room on the 80th floor, one guy was screaming, another comforting him. Someone was looking for a fire extinguisher to throw out a window. And the book itself just contains all sorts of information about phone calls during and movements, observations from other people that would know exactly where some people were at a given time. And then it gets to the end of the chapter saying, well, nobody ever saw so-and-so after this point. Like this one guy who had worked for the Port Authority, and he and another guy saved at least 70 people by breaking open doorways with crowbars. And it really came down to most people just continuing to do their work, not knowing that the towers could ever possibly fall, that they would just work as high as they could and then leave. And I heard this song, and that's what the last time I heard it on the radio or on elevator or something was when I worked at the Gap during college, 1982. So that's 30 years ago. And I'm being honest about that. Though I don't often listen to light rock, music. Still in all, it was an odd coincidence. I had posted this on my wall, and then my friend Danielle had made a comment about everybody having their own, story about 911. I actually wrote a fiction story just to get past a wall that had hit me in October of that year, and I had to write my way through it. But again, if you look to my other YouTube about the ambient noise, there are so many visceral and visual images from the book and from what I've seen, because I did have to catch up at one point through YouTube, because being in Chicago, I saw absolutely nothing. We were pretty much packed on the trains and such. As downtown was evacuated, I worked about a block and a half from the Chicago Board of Trade, and then the Sears Tower was about a block further west of the building I was in on LaSalle. And I always remember that was the month that everybody had to read To Kill a Mockingbird, so a lot of people had copies of that book on the trains, on the buses. We got to Midway, and because the planes were all coming in, see where I lived, the Orange Line stops in Midway Airport, and then you would get buses from there. As I got there, because nobody was able to have flights back then, there were tourists, people, speaking different languages or with different accents, a lot of British people, I remember. And out the window, I wish, you know, I had a digital camera at the time. I wish I had a camera at that time. Planes were landing in Midway about every 40 to 50 seconds. And that's an image I'll always remember, because if you were to look at any of my pages, say on Flickr or on Facebook, I have photos of planes coming down, landing, coming straight over 63rd Street. So if you're in a car, it's like that, and it's second nature around here. And there are just a lot of images in that book. You know, one thing that doesn't even faze me is that I've seen photos of bodies that were on the ground. The people who jumped in, it just looked like clothing and soot, because at that point, really a lot of, not the fact that people were jumping and landing down, it was, you know, rubble and such too. So they were landing and assumedly, you know, pushing up piles of soot and dirt and such. Anyhow, other images in the book, it just didn't faze me. Earlier today, I read again another section where people had come across the sky lobby on the 78th floor of the South Tower. What had happened there was Flight 175, you all know, tilted on an angle as it came in. The left wing then hit the 78th floor, where about 200 people were waiting for the elevators from the higher floors. And if you're in a big city, you'll know kind of what I'm talking about, where you've got, you know, like even in a 20-story building here, you could go from 1 to 20 or 1 to 10 and then 10 to 20, something like that. It was 44, 78, and the top floor 109 in the North Tower. Anyhow, the plane's wing just went through and severed people's heads. A lot of people just burnt to death. Some guy was trapped under marble that had fallen on him. And people constantly had to come past that scene as they were going down from the 81st or 82nd floor, coming down further. And that image really meant, it's not that it meant nothing to me. Maybe it's the fact that, just that the fact that the people were dead already, that the people on the ground outside were dead too. And it makes me think that before I even was aware of exactly what had happened, other than terrorism, by the time I got home, the entire thing was over. The towers were down. Flight 93 had crashed in Shanksville. But that one section I read, again, I refer to the previous YouTube I made yesterday, it's the fact that the woman was waiting to hear her husband's voice, and he never spoke. I don't know if he was perhaps crying in the background, if he had set the phone down in the smoke and couldn't get it, but all she was able to hear was 8 or 10 people in the room going through different emotions. The guy screaming, the guy comforting him, somebody else asking if anybody was lying around passed out. And it's just a day later, and I'm still stuck with that image. And I shouldn't say stuck with it. It's, I mean, there are other people certainly that have worse memories, and always will. But anyway, I just made this again today because it was such odd serendipity that I would hear the Bee Gees singing Message to You, honestly, for the first time in 30 years that I've heard that on the radio. Whereas I hear something by Taylor Swift every every other day while I'm at the gym. Or Snoop Dogg. So that's it. I'm going to cut out. And you'll get some ambient noise from this end for a second. Good night, everyone.